kinds of problems. We're working very hard on all those problems. But if you all want to go there and that can be your user ID and password, and give me feedback on what you think about this bridge, I would love that actually. Some of you may actually have studies that we have put into our bridge, and maybe you think that we did a terrible job. That's okay. Let me know that. What we want to do, as I said yesterday, is what we do in this. There's a picture, one picture of our bridge, and so what we do is we say, okay, what is this study? What's its main insight? Where did it take place? What year? Who did it serve? Right? Gender? You can't see. What is it? Is it rural or urban? Is it women or men or children or everybody? What do the actual subjects look like, right? I mean, so there's some more details on who we're servicing with this particular intervention. What kind of issue areas does it address? Early childhood, food security. What kind of tools does it use? What kind of intervention tools are used? What kinds of categories? Is this an unconditional transfer? Is this a physical product we're providing people? And then we've got questions here, right? So this is one of the key questions of this particular intervention. Do cash or food supplements improve early childhood cognitive development? Cognitive is misspelled. I preserved that because I wanted to show how under construction we are. And then we show the interventions here. Right? So blue is no intervention, brown is food supplement, green is cash supplement. You can see at a glance that if you want to improve early childhood cognitive development, which is on the y-axis here, a cash supplement works way better than a food supplement. That's, in my view, really awesome, because you can at a glance sort of tell what is one of the main findings of this particular RCT. This is available to almost anyone. Citizens, policymakers, whoever. If you would like more information, you can either click on the policy summary, or you can actually click on the study, and you can geek out on that. We do have, I don't know why it's not appearing here. My guess is that these are statistically significant, but we've got a way to determine whether or not your results are statistically significant or not. If these appear in a solid black outline. Anyway, so this is what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to make RCTs available in a fairly simple to read graphical format to policymakers. Yes, sir.
Awesome. One.
Thank you.
What's your plan for the sustainability? We've lazily gone down similar pathways for projects. Student, go make a spreadsheet, do a better literature review.
Yeah.
That is hard.
Yes.
What's your plan?
So I don't have a fantastic plan, but I do know, I'm committed to this. I want to make it sustainable. I want to grow it. I want to make it better. I am looking for funding. But also, as it turns out, BYU loves dumping money into student hours. And so BYU is actually quite sustainable here, I think. The dirty secret here is I'm using mostly undergraduates to do this, which worries me about the quality. But one of the things I do is I run each study through 4 different undergraduates. So I get, the first one, and then the second one checks, and the third one checks, and the fourth one checks. By the time I'm done with those 4 checks, I am desperately hoping that we've got the truth out of this study. But BYU loves its model of mentored learning, and they make all kinds of cash available for student hours. So as long as my project is student heavy, I think it is sustainable actually. And I'm hoping to actually, we've got 400 RCTs in here currently. I'm hoping to scale it up by, when we took it to the field, the main comment we received was, where are RCTs from my country? That's what everybody wanted to know. And so far we've got RCTs from 5 different sort of major, well-known research organizations here in the United States. I would love to actually scale it up by getting RCTs that have been performed by on the ground in developing countries, and go find those and process them in the same way. That's my, yeah.
And are you, to the extent that studies consider the same intervention and outcome, are you also building in so that, in a sense, there's like a visual meta-analysis in here? So, in other words, can you look at more than one study at the same time if they're sort of on similar topics, so you could consider whether, like, you know, it's just, what's the effect of learning about one study versus learning about 5 studies on a topic or something?
Yeah, that's fantastic. No, we haven't really done anything like that. You would have to do it currently sequentially. I mean, we do have we're improving the search engine though, it's not fantastic yet, but you could search by a given topic and then you could say, oh, look at that, there are 15 on this particular topic, or there are 5 studies on waste collection. And then you would have to look at them sequentially and just draw your own inferences about what might work or what doesn't work. But no, we haven't tried to do anything sort of systematic there that would enable people to, or that would reach any kind of conclusion about, you know, which type of intervention seems to work better or not. That's a great...
And the challenge is finding comparable studies, I guess.
Right.
But it would be fascinating, if you're going to do another round of this, is to take like the EGAT Metaketas, right, and be able to align all these studies together. I mean, give them separately, but then put them together and see if like some sort of like a larger body of evidence across multiple studies sways people, as opposed to, you know, one at a time or something.
Cool. Yes. Great idea. I think Dan is very interested in that, and he's thinking about how to do that. So yeah. And I welcome other suggestions for, you know, how to build this or make it better. I mean, another real constraint that we have is that we have so far constrained our outcomes to 4 per study. Well, some studies have 30 outcomes. Some studies have 1. And so we're artificially constraining in some ways the outcomes, and we're trying to, you know, get our students to pick the ones that get emphasized by the authors, which is, you know, I think we're doing actually a pretty good job at, because if the authors emphasize them in the abstract introduction and conclusion, you know, if you do 30 outcomes in your study, you still kind of highlight a couple of those typically in a paper, and so we're trying to do that sort of thing, but the other solution is just to expand the number of outcomes that we do in a particular paper.
Can I ask a technical question?
Yeah.
Do you guys intend to do like APIs or anything that allows other people to ping your database and show people neat stuff?
I had not even thought about that yet, so that would yes, let's talk. Okay, good, awesome. I'm glad there's interest. I mean, you know, Dan, you'll see at the end that this doesn't actually get much use from policymakers, unfortunately. And Dan and I looked at each other and said, wow, I guess we use this a lot more than policymakers do, right? I mean, I think academics could be quite interested in this as well, and graduate students, like I said yesterday. I use this all the time. This is fascinating stuff for me. So I like my own bridge, I guess. What induces, some more questions. What induces individual government officials in developing countries to engage with this RCTs, with our website here? We know nothing about this. You know, a lot of literature on this. There is quite a bit of literature on evidence-based policymaking in the public administration field in particular, but a lot of it is kind of looking at systematic factors, right? So what systematically, you know, what could a bureaucracy do in a given country that would, and typically they're focusing on top-down kinds of things, right? So if a higher level bureaucrat says, hey, you policymakers or you policy helpers really need to engage in, well then yeah, that matters, right? So far the literature mostly looks at kind of systematic level factors as to how we can improve policymaker engagement with evidence, but we want to look at this at the individual level too. So we've got 4 interventions. So we built this website, and then we identified 3 countries, India, Tanzania, and Peru. And we not only built the website, we translated it to Spanish. I'm particularly proud of that. So we've got this in a Spanish language version too. Everything, every outcome, every insight is all translated to Spanish. So we built this in Spanish too. And then we got 3 focus countries, and we said, okay, we've got 4 interventions here. So one is, trainer nationality. So what we did is we had RAs, I call them trainers in this context, contact government officials in each of these countries. And so we vary. Do we have a US student contact them, or a local student? Do we have a male or a female student contact them? Do we use the social proof? So our social proof is, we say in our first contact, whether by email or by telephone, we say, other people in your ministry have demonstrated interest in this. And that is truthful, because we only use social proof after people in the control group have demonstrated an interest in it. And so would you also like to know about it? And then we created, as I said yesterday, we created actually 6 different versions of our website. And in the baseline version, it looks a lot like what you see here. But in the gamification versions, for example, you do not see this immediately. You have to guess which outcome you think is best. So we make it into more of a game. And we have quiz questions where you can go in and you can just do quizzes. And you don't actually look at the context surrounding a study. And then we have points that you can receive if you guess answers correctly, or if you spend a lot of time on our website, or if you click on links, or if you do searches. And then we reveal those points anonymously to others, or reveal those points with your true name to others. And then in one version of the website, we also pay you if you're in the top 10 of points users in a given month.
And Darren?
Yeah.
And that's for all 400 projects, you have all
Yes.
6 versions?
Yes.
So in other words, you're not kind of like gamifying like one project that so
Right.
they could move around everywhere and they get that same full functionality?
Yes, exactly, yeah. All 6 versions of the website apply to all 400 projects, yep, exactly, yeah. Our subjects, as I just said, government officials, trainer teams, 6 to 8 students from BYU to each of those 3 countries. We hired an equal number of locals in each country. We did this in July and August. So all of this data is pretty hot off the press. It's, I think I'm fairly confident in the results we've found so far, but there's still a lot of analysis to be done, because we just wrapped up 2 months ago and got out of the field, so I think I've already talked about this. Each trainer contacted randomly assigned government officials by email, phone, or in purpose. Their purpose was to set up an appointment to demonstrate the website. Okay, so we randomized, which government officials you were assigned. We actually block randomized on your ministry, so that we made sure that ministries were equally distributed among different kinds of students. The trainers explicitly stated their nationality during the first contact. So I am Darren Hawkins. I'm a student from BYU in the United States. Or I am Juan Lopez, and I'm a student at a local university in Peru. So they explicitly stated their nationality. The gender we did not explicitly state. That would be odd. But they were easily observable by way of names. We didn't really hire anybody with a gender-neutral name. Or on the phone by the voice quality. And then some of these first contacts used social proof and others did not. And we had 6 website versions I've already kind of talked about, right? What the differences were there. We worked hard. This is my equivalent of the pain and suffering slide, I guess. There were 15,000 government officials that we identified. We identified our government officials primarily through web searches. Between the 3 countries, we got 15,000. We sent 13,440 emails to those 15,000 government officials. Some of those emails were repeats, so that doesn't mean we contacted 13,000 different government officials, but we sent a first wave of email and a second wave and a third wave, up to a third wave at a time. We made 5,000 phone calls. We got 1,700 responses for 11.5% response rate, which is, I think, pretty good. Of those 1,700 responses, 917 said, no, I'm not interested at all, go away, leave me alone. 782, though, were quite positive. They said, you know, yeah, I might be interested in that. Maybe I'm interested in your visit. And we eventually had, from those 782 positive responses, we had 331 appointments set up to demonstrate the website, and we wound up training 641 government officials in those 3 countries on our website. Okay, so language and nationality effects, you know, and this is just kind of some background literature on this that shows that, you know, I mean, the background literature on this kind of stuff is that if you share an ethnicity or a nationality with somebody, that you find them more credible. And, you know, a lot of this comes out of the advertising literature and so forth, but, you know, we are kind of making an advertising pitch, actually, right? We've got some data that could help you in your job. Are you interested in dedicating a half hour of your time to us? And a lot of the hypotheses suggest that actually local trainers should be generating more interest from policymakers, if you look at that sort of literature. But then you've got the opposite hypothesis, which is that actually U.S. trainers should generate more interest if what you think about is country branding. And there's a big literature in the business world on country branding, which is pretty interesting, right? Where country of origin has a very strongly positive impact on the willingness to pay. And you know, we're not asking people to pay, policymakers to pay, but we are asking them to pay with their time, right? And so maybe there's a country branding effect going on here. And you know, if you do these country branding surveys, either the United States is 1 of 50 in one country branding survey, or it's 7th of 75 in another country branding survey, and Peru doesn't do so well in that survey. And the U.S. is especially strong in technology. So, you know, is there going to be kind of a nationality effect, a co-nationality effect, or is there going to be more of a country branding kind of effect? And here's how we measured it. Here's our outcomes. Do we receive a positive response or a negative response from policymaker? Do we receive any response at all? Does a policymaker set a meeting with us? Do they hold the meeting with us? And how many actually show up to that meeting? And the effects are huge, actually. For North Americans are way more likely to train, in Peru in particular. In other countries we had a confound. So in Peru we sent North Americans who only spoke Spanish, and they spoke Spanish fairly well. So we interacted with everybody in their native language. In India and Tanzania, we did not speak the native languages. Our local trainers did, and frequently what would happen is that, you know, English is kind of a lingua franca, but it's not terribly well spoken, come to find out, among Tanzanian and Indian government officials frequently. And so our local trainers would default to local languages, and we couldn't. So we don't see as much of an effect, though we actually do still see a little bit of an effect for North Americans in India and Tanzania. We see a huge effects in Peru. So in Peru, North Americans, you know, they get 2.4 people per meeting, and locals get 1.5 people per meeting. North Americans get a 17% positive response rate. Sort of astounding, I think. Locals get a 6% positive response rate to initial inquiries. North Americans only get a 6% negative response rate. Peruvians get a 9% negative response rate. So our positive response rates are off the charts for North Americans and really tamp down on the negative response rates. The probability of holding appointments. Again, there's an 8% chance. I mean, this, in some ways, this exceeded my expectations, right? I mean, 8% of the people that we cold called or cold emailed in Peru said, yeah, I'm interested in that. if you're a North American, and only 4% if you're a Peruvian. In India, you know, Indians were more likely to receive positive responses, but like I say, seems to probably be a local language kind of a thing. Indians were also more likely to receive negative responses, right? So one of the things that's going on here is that North Americans just didn't get responses, in part because Indians didn't answer their emails. In Peru, everybody answered their email. In India, hardly anybody answered their email. And so we wound up on the phone in India a lot. And we got just a lot of hang-ups when we would try to speak English to people in India. And so we didn't count those as positive or negative. So Indians got a lot more positive responses, but they also got a lot more negative responses. That says positive response rate is supposed to be negative. Tanzanians were also more likely to receive negative responses. So again, Tanzanians got a lot more responses because, again, we didn't speak Swahili. So we got a lot more responses generally. Tanzanians got a lot more responses generally, so they got more positive responses and more negative responses. Okay, but no matter what, North Americans were more likely to train people, so people would show up to meetings more if you were North American. Okay, gender effects. And gender effects, you know, this is interesting. What does the background literature show? The background literature says that women, you know, there's this sort of, there's all this game literature that looks at gender differences. And in many game experience, women are seen as more trustworthy. In sort of donation generosity, when women and men approach people and ask for something, kind of like we're asking for your time. More money is donated to women, so you know you might think, well, maybe more time would be donated to women. And you know, there's even these kind of positive hiring biases towards female workers, and that's especially true in female-dominated occupations, and men are preferred male-dominated, but women gain an advantage in gender-neutral. And I don't know how to think precisely about our invitation to train you. That might be a more gender-neutral kind of a job. But I think generally the hypothesis is that women trainers should generate more interest from policymakers, and we have the same kinds of outcomes. And in fact, this is true, right? Women are way more likely to receive positive responses than men. So this is in Peru. Women get a 13% positive response rate, men get a 9% positive response rate. Men also get more negative responses. Men get turned down 8.5% of the time, women only 6% of the time. And I'm only showing you outcomes that are statistically significant, by the way. Women are more likely to hold an appointment in Peru. Again, 7.5% to 5%. Women are more likely to train and hold an appointment in Tanzania. Women get 8%. 8% of the people we contacted get trained, and only 4% of the men. Okay. India, men are more likely to receive negative responses. So across all three countries, in Peru the evidence is strongest, but across all three countries there is some evidence that women get better responses than men. The social proof treatments, there are, every study I look at, I mean maybe that's an exaggeration, but I've looked at dozens of studies on social proof where people say something like, you know, this is the Cialdini kind of stuff, right? Other people are doing it too. Do you want to do it, or do you in fact do it? And everyone shows that social proof works. We don't. This is a no-brainer.
Is this a true statement, or is it potentially accepted?
This is a true statement.
Okay, so, because what I'm wondering, right, is you know, what could be the case is you say other people in the ministry meeting with us, and then, like when I asked Tom, did you meet with these people? Tom says no, and I asked Matt to meet with these people, and then, so it's not a true.
It was a true statement in our case, and I believe most of these social proof ones that I've looked at are also true. I mean, the earliest ones were, you know, in hotels, 80% of our guests reuse their towel. And if you put that on a sign, tons of people reuse their towels, and if you don't, then people don't.
So in like a workplace environment though, could it be something like, we're a department, we have scarce time, we ought to send somebody to do this, but let's not send everybody.
Yeah. I wonder if that's what's going on, yeah. Because what's going on, because, yeah, this should be a no-brainer, social proof should work, but it doesn't, right? I mean, I've got a couple of outcomes here that show that, I mean, whatever, boring. Not all outcomes are significant. Now, 17 of the 18 outcomes are in the same direction where the control outperformed the social proof. Social proof never had an effect. Sometimes it had a negative effect, right? Where if you tell people, so yeah, maybe it's this, maybe it's, oh, somebody in my office is already taking care of this, I don't have to worry about it. Yeah, it might be the workplace environment. Yeah, that's one possibility. The other thing we thought about is that maybe government officials are more self-confident in their judgments than other sorts of people. Maybe they actually discount, so they hear what other people think, but that is unimportant to them. There is a little bit of literature that says that elites or powerful people rely more on their own attitudes. And in this context, government officials may think of themselves as elites or powerful, and maybe, they're relying more on their own judgment. They're less willing to listen to other people. I mean, there's this kind of interesting finding that, so it could be a workplace environment. It could be that not very many of these social proof studies have been done on elites, and you might think of government officials as elites. And then we did this gamification thing, right? And there's some literature out there that shows that gamification is effective in increasing engagement in online programs. Gamification is not effective per se, but there are certain elements of gamification that might work. So our hypothesis was that gamification would increase website engagement, but we weren't sure which aspects. And we look at lots of outcome measures here. We look at the amount of time you spend on our website, how many studies you look at, how many outcomes you look at from those studies, how many searches you made, how many points you wind up getting, but nothing works. We did get 368 people registered for our website. They're not spending a lot of time on our website, right? They're spending 11 minutes. Okay, I'll take 11 minutes. Maybe that's, I was talking about this with somebody and said, well, website time is measured in nanoseconds, and so if you got 11 minutes, that's enormous. Okay, maybe. On average, people are viewing 1.3 studies, so they take a look at a study, then they're done. They look at 5 outcomes, so they take a look at a study and maybe an outcome or two from another study. They don't make very many searches. So that's, I don't know, I guess I was hoping for more. You only find one kind of outcome here, which is that in Peru, gamification does increase the outcomes viewed. So if you have to kind of guess what the answer might be, that's the basic game we have, then people actually do look at more outcomes. I guess the hypothesis is they kind of like it. What are the conclusions? Overall, government officials respond much more positively to U.S. trainers in Peru. Especially, government officials respond more positively to women trainers in all 3 countries. Social proofs either have no effect or backfire, and website gamification has little effect. But these are early results. I especially need to do more on that gamification thing. Was that a hand?
I was just on the gamification, the language thing, because the Peruvian website is in Spanish. Right?
That might be it too. That's a good point.
And the Tanzanian websites, people had to read in English.
That's a good point. Website use was disappointingly low to me, but maybe I should be happy actually with how much. Officials don't return much or use it much. And one of the things they seem to want was more RCTs from their own country. I've already sort of said that. I thought about this, I thought about the old saying that you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. But I don't have a horse, so I led my mountain bike to water, and I can't make it drink either. So in other words, people.
Did you make that meme?
I did not, but when I saw that meme, I was like, that is me. But, you know, so what's my point here? My point is that when we went to these countries, we said, we'd like to meet with you and show you this website. We got a pretty enthusiastic response, actually, especially in Peru. I mean, I thought that, you know, positive rates were pretty high. But then we showed them our website and they don't really use it. So what's going on here? Yeah, by sort of likening government officials to mountain bikes, I'm not disparaging them in any way. I love my mountain bike and I think of it more highly than I do almost any individual in this world. But maybe we just need a bigger lake. Maybe we need a better website, right? Maybe they don't want to drink that, but they would want to drink from that. Yeah.
Can you break down usage by country and then?
Peru did get a bunch more usage, so it could be a language thing.
Can you break down usage by number of studies in each country?
Oh, that sounds like fun. I haven't done that yet. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, in terms of the size of the lake, I mean, with 400 studies, the probability of finding some study that they're interested in, or multiple studies, in order to take time to be able to go between different studies, isn't that a potential factor in terms of retention at the site, and what's the process of increasing the size of the lake?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, this is what I've been thinking about recently. This is precisely the lines along which my thoughts have run. Is, you know, at first I thought, wow, 400, that's pretty cool, because we have nearly the universe, I would say, of studies from developing countries that are interpretable. I hate to tell you how many studies on the JPAL and other websites are virtually uninterpretable for policy questions, which is sad. In fact, one of my goals is to maybe make a wall of shame. I'm published in JPAL, but we can't extract a single piece of useful policy relevant information out of your study. I hope none of you are on that wall of shame. But, and maybe it's our fault. But we are close to the universe of studies that are on these websites. And so we're going to have to start looking for other sources of RCTs. I do think that many developing countries have their own sort of universes of, so that's my plan next, is to maybe go to particular countries that we're interested in, see how many RCTs we can find in those countries, and then see if that makes a difference, I guess, is kind of what I'm thinking about. Yeah, thank you.
A couple of points. To that point, have you looked at the Development Exchange Clearinghouse for USA?
I'm not sure we have. Thank you.
It's kind of bare, and you have to, because it's hard to search, but all of USA sponsored impact evaluate, anything that we publish has to go on that website. And so you can break it down by evaluations. Some of them will be performance evaluations, some will be impact, but that would be a.
So I can do a search on the DEC. I've used that site before, but I hadn't thought about this, right? So yeah, I could do a search for evaluations.
Search by, yeah, they'll give you evaluations in general, and then you'll have to manually filter which one's performance and which ones are impact. Second, I may have missed this, how long did you monitor their usage for?
So it's been now about 2 months since we got back from the field. So the data I presented is actually a very early cut of usage, but the more recent data doesn't look a lot different.
And so whenever somebody logs on with their username and password, then you track.
Exactly, then I'm tracking how long they're spending, how many studies they're looking at, which studies they're looking at, yeah.
Well, speaking as one of those government officials who don't drink water, it might, so something like this, I see people only using when they have a need.
Sure.
Like if I need to write a document, I will look up this, find the study that I'm interested in, get the snippet, and then I can go back to writing my document. But if they're
Thank you, that's a really good point, yeah, maybe people are spending these first 10 minutes saying, okay, could I use this in the future? And then hopefully they'll come back to it and once or twice a year that they might need to quickly reference it, yeah. That's a hopeful thought, yeah.
So, in the longer term, what you can do to get from kind of usage to measures that are closer to what we care about, which I would think is something like knowledge.
Do they actually, yes.
Do they know stuff now that may then in diffuse and hard to measure ways affect how they make decisions? So can you for some of your users, do some kind of, I don't know, surveys where you present them with, what do you think the likelihood that intervention X in context Y would achieve? Right? And sort of see over time if those who are using it get closer to what the results of the study show, how do you get from website usage to knowledge,
to
or
knowledge,
putting something into action? It seems like a really hard step here.
Absolutely, I agree 1,000%. That step scares me to death. I'm happy to be at my little baby step right now. But yeah, I think we need to think. We're trying to think hard about, okay, what are real world outcomes that we would really want? Yeah, I think measuring people. I mean, survey. We could certainly. Boy, wouldn't it be lovely if we could actually, do some kind of analysis of the actual development plans of different countries and see if they're making reference to other kinds of studies or something like that when they.
But I'd imagine the next step is knowledge,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
then even a step further is
Right.
that kind of stuff.
That kind of thing, yeah. And yeah, we've got everybody's emails. If you register for the website, we've got you, so we could do some follow-up stuff here, and we definitely want to.
We've got time for one more question.
Okay.
Just building on this a little bit, and just sort of thinking about that you got 15,000 from 3 countries, right? Which means, which is impressive, but it also means you have people that are probably doing really isolated tasks and things like that, right? And at some level, I guess you have to sort of think about what expectations you're putting on people in a specific, in a specific position and so forth. And I think in addition to understanding those individuals and what changes is just sort of understanding the environment that they're in somehow. It's almost like you need to get more of that background information to understand what could even be useful in something like this.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
So because someone might, someone's job in the Ministry of Health or something might be to ensure that every contract, whatever, has,
Exactly.
And so in some ways,
Does it have a comma in the right place? Yeah.
for that person, 11 minutes is it's like a massive victory in a sense. Maybe, right? Or maybe they're just wasting it, whatever, right? But trying to understand that a little bit better. If there's a way to tap that sort of going in on the front end or whatever, you maybe have a better sense of baseline of what could come of it. So, and then real quick on the other one, have you guys looked at the 3IE registry?
So yes, we do 3IE, and it has massive numbers of studies, but once we impose certain kinds of criterion, it really winnows down. I can't remember now what
Because
those
they have their overall registry, they claim of development interventions is over 4,000
Right.
interventions.
Yes.
So I guess I'm curious what parameters you're putting on that,
I
but
can't remember what basic parameter. I was so excited when I saw that 3IE thing too, but then we said, no, hold it, we want only studies X, and it really winnowed it down. I need to go back. I can't remember what that parameter was.
because another thought here too is I don't know what the genesis of all of the focus on RCTs was, but but there's lots of non-RCT impact evaluations that could be really beneficial to people, right? Especially if done right, done well. And 3IE, there's a set of studies on 3IEs that are mandated by 3IE and are high quality, or probably higher quality. Then there's a lot that aren't, right? But it seems like at some level you could dramatically expand this by thinking about, sort of a less stringent criterion, something like rigorous, but maybe doesn't have to be, say, fully randomized, or maybe you allow in a quasi-experimental design or whatever. Maybe you get into the business of saying do they have a credible counterfactual of some sort, whatever that is, right? It seems like you could sort of and then maybe if you broaden the database, gets to some of the other points. then you get more relevant for like individual people. Whatever.
Yeah, now that you say that, I'm remembering the criteria, it was kind of quality criteria like that, right? The funder or we had to know something about who had published or funded or done the study, and yeah, that cut out a lot of things.
And one of the really quick, I know we got a fan, but it would be, it seems like there ought to be a better way to match, like, to identify a possible subject and match them to some piece of evidence that could be of interest to them, right?
Mhm.
Where like, one of the very first things you do is you get some basic background on the position that they're in, ministry, whatever, right? And then you immediately, like, you have a bunch of keywords for the whole database that can match with, and then you're able to like pipe in some information that they could see very early in the process or something. I don't know if that happens at the email stage, as you're starting to reach out to people to give them a teaser of what's in there, and you could like pipe in, I mean, I don't know, maybe, I guess you'd have to have a couple of exchanges or something, but it seems like at some level earlier on, being able to get them right to some piece of information, and then maybe that from there, they like expand out or something.
Fantastic. I feel like I applaud you guys. We're out of time. I'm sorry. Can we?
No,
Check.
I'm gonna hunt you down later then.
Okay, good. I want that.
Because we're gonna do this. We have plans already.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.